ಸಿನಿಮಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಸೌಂಡ್ ಡಿಸೈನಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳುವಂಥದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಬಹಳ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿರುವಂತಹ ವಿಷಯ ಆಗಿರ್ತದೆ. ಒಂದು ಸಿನಿಮಾದ ಇಡೀ ಧ್ವನಿಯನ್ನು ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತಹ ಒಬ್ಬ ಟೆಕ್ನಿಷಿಯನ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅದರ ಹಿಂದೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಒಬ್ಬರು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಅಂತವರು ಒಬ್ರು ಇವತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮೊಟ್ಟಿಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆಂಟನಿ ರೂಬನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋರು ನಮ್ಮೊಟ್ಟಿಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆಂಟನಿ ರೂಬನ್ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಒಂದು 20 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ 20 ಇಯರ್ಸ್ ಅವರು ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಅವರು ಸೌಂಡ್ ಡಿಸೈನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ರೀತಿಯ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಗಳನ್ನು ಹ್ಯಾಂಡಲ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರ ಸಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಮರಾಠಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಸಿನಿಮಾಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಹಿಂದಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಪರಿಚಿತ ಇರಬಹುದಾಗಿರುವಂತಹ ಬೇವಕೂಫಿಯಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳುವಂತ ಒಂದು ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಮರ್ದ್ ಕು ದರ್ದ್ ನಹಿ ಹೋತಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳುವಂತ ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದಲ್ಲದೆ ಚೆನ್ನೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತೆ ಮದ್ರಾಸ್, ಕಬಾಲಿ, ಕಾಲ ಈ ತರದ ತುಂಬಾ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಬಜೆಟ್ ನ ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ಗಳು ರಜನಿಕಾಂತ್ ಅವರೊಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಒಂದು ವಾಸ್ಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಇರುವಂತ ಸೌಂಡ್ ಇಂಜಿನಿಯರ್ ಟೆಕ್ನಿಷಿಯನ್ ರೂಬನ್ ನಮ್ಮೊಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ. ಮಾತಾಡುವ ಅವರೊಟ್ಟಿಗೆ. Hello Ruban. Hi.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah, so good to see you after long time. So
yes, same here.
Would like to start by understanding your background. How, where are you from? How did you come to sound? What made you get interested in sound designing, etc.?
Okay. So basically I was born and brought up in Chennai, and I finished my school and college, graduated from Chennai. And while I was studying in college, I was into a lot of theater. Like I got indulged by a lot of theater. I used to do a lot of mime, in fact. And so I never took academics that seriously. So that part of my journey actually led me to I didn't finish my graduation on the year which I was supposed to finish. So I had a spare year. So I was wondering what to do with my spare year. So to finish off my arrears and my pending papers and all. So I joined animation. So that was my first exposure to the digital world, basically, computer graphics and animation. So in that, sound editing and video editing was a part of the curriculum, actually. So I slowly got drifted and interested in that part of the world. And right about 2001, one of my close priest, a father, he was running a communication center called the Don Bosco Institute of Communication Arts. So there they were about to build a new studio. So they were looking for someone to just learn and work and gain experience and start off. So I was just doing theater for them as a part of their training curriculum. So then he asked me if I could just learn. I've already had expressed interest in him, telling that I wanted to be in sound, like I like that field and I want to explore more. So he actually created a studio. With that time he had Pro Tools gotten into the studio. Then he gave me a full keyboard, because I was also into a lot of music at that time. I was doing a lot of church music. I was doing music for all the mime shows which we used to do. So he got me a keyboard and he got me a system. He got me a nice studio space. And I started basically working small projects like short films, documentaries, music videos and stuff like that. And slowly I got very deep into it and slowly started to realize, like, this is what I wanted to do. Like this is what I want to become. Like, I think I was 22 at that time. And until then, I never had any idea of what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I think that part of my journey gave me an insight that, okay, I should aim for this. Then one of my friends actually guided me, saying that there is an institute called the Film Institute in Pune. And I think that also Don Bosco had a lot of interesting books on film. And there were a lot of interviews from ex-Film Institute, alumni of Film Institute students, and a lot of technicians from Bombay. There were a lot of interviews, technical papers they had in the library. So I had a chance to go through all of them. And I had already I knew about this place existed, like Film Institute, but I never knew how to get in there and like what is the procedure and all. So this friend guided me. He's a musician. So he said, you apply and you see this year they're calling for entries. So in 2003 I applied, and I think like that in that year I was the only student from Chennai. I was shocked, like who applied for sound, especially not.
But tell me, like when you decided to go to FTI, do people understand what exactly you wanted to do, other than probably the priest and a couple of other people?
No, nobody understood, because it was still it was still part of the film industry. Like, it came with all the taboos and misconceptions film industry had. You know, so everybody, the only thing I understood is this person, I mean, this boy is going to do something with films. You know, he wants to go into the film industry. So nobody knew what in the film industry or what exactly you want to do in the film industry. Nobody had any idea. Like, you know, no, like, and I didn't meet my parents also, my family also that much when I was studying also. So I was also away from them. So it also helped me to, you know, go keep a distance from all those questions and, like, you know, discussions. You know, so I was, those 3-4 years I was pretty away from the family. But it took a while for all my folks, even my close friends, to understand, like, you know, how, like, what I'm exactly doing. And even now it's tough when a lot of family members keep asking, if sound, what do you exactly do? Do you work with a composer? Do you, that song, what, that's what you did, that song? Like, you know, they have to ask all these questions. In fact, one friend told me, like, I saw that film, that song was very well composed. I was like, I had nothing to do with the song. These are like, still I had to clear some misconceptions to the highest level till the production side. You know? So that is there.
Yeah. So other thing I wanted to know is, okay, you come from Chennai, and you said you were the only person from Tamil Nadu to come to FTI that year. Mostly it was the case with me also. Like, you know, generally South Indians somehow don't get into that. One of the things I think is also the language. Was language a problem at any time?
Actually, surprisingly, never, I would say, because probably those first few weeks in the institute was little tough. But then after a week, I think it was, I kind of felt that I belong to this space immediately. I think that space had given me that, it welcomed me, like, you know, like that. I think that energies of the space was like that. I didn't feel, the moment I walked into that space, I didn't feel alienated. There was a strange sense of belonging. It was, I mean, it was beyond language or anything. Even whoever, like the students I met there, everybody seemed very close to me. It never felt like I've come into a strange land, like with strange people. With, it all seemed very new to me, because I was looking for a change at that point of time. Because for 22 years I was in one space with one kind of people, with one speaking one type of language. I think deep inside, I wanted that change. I wanted to expand into the unknown. I think the whole unknown became so familiar to me. I think I felt very comfortable, and I think since then it's been very good. So language was never a barrier, you know. So even Hindi or English, like, it felt very comfortable, and a lot of Tamil songs helped me to do a lot of ice breaking in the first months of ragging and stuff like that, you know. Like, music was a big connection.
Right.
We used to sing, like, we all used to sit and sing a lot of songs, Hindi songs. I used to sing A.R. Rahman songs, and, like, you know, by then A.R. Rahman had gone so much into Bollywood, and he became very familiar. So I had to use those elements, you know, to ice break into that space. But it was good.
Right. So how did you get your first job after FTI?
First job was in a film, I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think after FTI, there was a couple of years of searching for the right space for me to work. I wanted to get into music recording because I had a lot of musical instincts in me. So I tried a lot of music studios, and, like, you know, I tried a lot of musicians, music engineers, mixing engineers. I approached them whether I could assist them, and nothing really clicked well. But then I had to go back to the institute for another student diploma film. The student's name is called Lilium Leonard. She is a French student, and I had an opportunity to do her diploma film. And I would like to say, I think that film, the film is called Thread. That film really changed a lot of things about sound in me, and working with her gave me a totally different exposure of the oral world, because that film had a lot of scope to experiment with sound and music, because we decided not to do with any electronic music. So we created every sounds from instruments we collected from Kerala and all this stuff like that. So all the instruments were recorded by me in the institute, in the studio. So it was a 6 months. We spent 6 months to do that short film. So that was a completely different. It put me on a different dimension altogether. I think since then, I became very focused in designing the sound for a film. That film was watched by a lot of filmmakers. One of them was Umesh Kulkarni, our senior at the institute. And by then he had finished his first film called Valu. So he was, his pre-production for his second film was on. Once the film got over, he gave me a call. He said he had watched Thread and he liked the work and he wanted to work with me in his second film. And that was Vihir. That was my first film, and it's a Marathi film. And I mean, again, even in talking about language, I saw the film without any subtitles and I didn't understand the language, but the film still hit me. It still reached on to me, just the edit of the film, like, you know, and it was a dub film, so that sound was also not pretty good. But the film still hit me because there were a lot of silent moments in the film. There were a lot of human emotions, well written, in lot of depth, you know. So it helped me to work beyond the language barrier. And, like, you know, being a first film, Umesh was so, Umesh's sensitivity is like, he's very sensitive towards the medium in very small things also. So Vihir was my first film. And since then, the journey has been like a step further only, like film after film.
And then you get into Hindi film industry and do some big stuff there.
Yes. Again, Thread is the main reason, because Thread was also screened in Bombay. And another director called Atul Sabharwal, he watched Thread. And that time they were doing television series for Yash Raj. And so he called me to do his television series called Powder with YRF. So that's how I got associated with YRF. And then after Powder, Atul made Aurangzeb. And I made a lot of contacts within YRF. Then I had a chance to work with Bewakufia. And also Vihir was watched by Vasan Bala watched Vihir and he really loved it. And then I had a chance to work in his first film, Peddlers, which was in Cannes that year. So I think it's like my first two projects, I think was like a launcher for me to branch into both these industries, like, you know, independent and commercial.
Yeah. So in sound, as I understand, there are two like basic differences in terms of technicians. One is the one who goes to location recording or sync sound, and then the one who designs it back in the studio. Of course, there are many other, but generally probably two. Why did you opt for design rather than the sync? Because sync is also very important. And
I think it's a lot to do with my temperament, one, and also, as I said, after Thread, my focus has become very how to say it. I got myself very focused on that part of the department because it gave me a lot of confidence in me that, like, you know, that I could do more if I plan to stick to this. And I got very comfortable in doing that also. And also working with documentaries also helped me to be at that spot, because the drama and the life in documentaries inspired me so much that it also helped me to understand the oral world and the drama related to it. And I got kicked about creating all those dramas from scratch. Like layer by layer, you add it, you create the drama, you mix it, you balance it. I think this process really was very inspiring to me. Like that's why I stuck to it. And other sync sound, I mean, I tried a couple of films, but I didn't get so kicked by that, like that process. And I thought I never had the temperament to keep at it. Like, you know, you need a very strict discipline of that. You need to be highly in control of the whole process, the screw and everything. I think I'm pretty much a like a one-man army sitting in a room and working over your thought and working on it. I think that kind of zone I was into it, rather than handling 120 people and shouting silence and stuff like that. I think this part of the world kind of excited me a lot.
See, for a fiction film, I can understand that you can create a lot of things, imaginative things, which, as in, depending on the texture of the film, how you can decide how wide you can go. But when it comes to documentary, documentaries are supposed to be about facts and the more of a diegetic sound rather than non-diegetic sounds. How much freedom do you have there to be creative?
First of all, I used to go to these documentary shoots mostly. I used to be a recordist in these shoots, actually more than a designer. Because there, what happened was, every time I record, every time I observe what has been happening, there is a sense of design which flows in the space subconsciously without the knowledge of us. If you listen to it, there is a design which flows, whatever sounds coming and going and everything. I started locking onto that pattern of design which happens, even though it's realistic, even though it's a passing of a vehicle or it's a bird or it's the sound of a wave. If you interview somebody by the shore, I was fascinated by the rhythm of the waves which come and go. I got kind of locked into the design of the natural world. Then when we come back to the studio, I try to recreate that natural world. If clean it up, clean the interview, probably recreate that nature with that same design. So I kind of got hacked by the design of the environment around it, around the documentary world. And I thought it's more dramatical than what we create in fiction sometimes. Sometimes you never expect certain things to happen in a documentary and it really surprises you, which we would never be able to crack it in fiction. How much ever we break our brains, we will never be able to crack that realistic design. I think, in fact, documentary for me taught more of sound design than to deal with fiction more in that sense, actually. Basically, it's a realistic drama in that sense.
So when you come to fiction, then there is another problem, as I see it, that the scripts are usually written tight, and how much space do you have for a design?
Yeah, it lot depends on the script, and our films, especially South Indian films or Indian films. I mean, we clearly have two different areas of industries. We have a hardcore commercial structure with has a culture of song and music and dialogues, and we have at least in Bollywood we have another independent structure they want to explore with characters and space and various other things of the cinematic element of it. I think it totally depends on the script, how much of scope the director has kept for the sound narrative, or whether the director is sensitive to that part of film expression, because not many directors are sensitive to the sound expression. By default, most of the directors here are very sensitive to dialogue and music, and the visual expression. Visual expression is even more people are more sensitive to that. But sound expression is still very on a very subconscious level or nil. You have to really force some elements into it to make it seem okay, or to make it flow as a design concept, or there is no scope. You just have to leave it with dialogue and music, because script level there is no scope. So there's no point in enforcing elements which which will distract the script itself. So it's a challenge. Even though you find a small scene here and there to explore its sound, since the overall film has a tone, it doesn't matter, unless this whole film is perceived in terms of sound and music and narrative together. So it's still a challenge, actually.
So ideally, at what stage would you like to jump into a project?
Ideally at the scripting stage, so that we can still see how we can incorporate the sound narrative into the characters, how we can build the space or the psychology of the character to the sound rather than music. It helps me to convince a director to go for a live sound or a dubbed film, those discussions we can have, and it helps me to record certain things in the shooting stage only, like other than, because it's very difficult once the production is over, it's very difficult to go and record anything because you're not going to get any help from anybody. Budget is an issue. So coming in the script stage helps me to plan better for the post production. Like I normally do, it helps me to do a very elaborate planning for the post production, like collecting things, discussing things, basically archiving for the film, like, you know, what we need for the film in post production, so that we don't struggle with the time and money later. So yeah, script stage is better mostly.
But especially when it comes to sound, the sound usually comes almost in the fag end of the production, where the release date is fixed and the, you know, the color grading is happening, and then, you know, it comes to the sound. Isko thoda, you know, just clean it up and, you know, mix it up. So how much planning goes in, and what kind of planning goes in? Can you explain it to me, please?
For example, if I get into a film on the scripting stage, so one of the first I said is I collect everything, because once I sit with the director and discuss with him what all you need for this film, what all you need to hear in this film, like, you know, you give a list of, like, let's discuss on that. So he will tell me I need to hear all these things, like whether it's an ambience, whether it's a space, whether it's a musical performance, or, you know, anything. I gather all the information from, like, you know, from the beginning itself, like from the start of the film itself. Then it'll help me to line up things pretty easily. Like, you know, like at least I have the necessary element, like a sound rushes to work with it, so that even if it's a time crunch, even if they give me a month to finish the film, at least I have an element to at least give what the director wants. He must have forgotten it, actually, even the whole, after 6 months, 7 months, he must have forgotten what he said. But at least I will have the elements which we discussed in the beginning, like, you know, because I would like to always go back to the script. Like, this is what is written in the script. So we'll make a note of it, so that when it comes to the end, when you see the film, I would like the director to have the sense which we got while he was writing. So that is the target which I want to reach. So for that, one is the collecting part. Next is the whole post-production flow, which includes the dialogue recording, or the Foley, or, you know, or even sitting with the composer and everything. So everything needs to be sorted out in terms of the design perspective, like, you know, because of the time crunch, I work with a lot of assistant directors, because the directors are always very busy, like, you know, with graphics and music, and like they have to sit with the composer, marketing and stuff like that. Like, I always ask the production direction team to give me one good associate director for sound. So I sit and plan with him or her, like, you know, whatever needs to be done for the film, like, you know, whether it's Foley, or, like, you know, even some effects needs to be recorded, like, you know. Then I'll sit with the assistant director only, like, do the design, or then we call the director, like, you know, so that the work is fast. So, and we divide the work like that. Then one assistant director is given for Foley, one assistant director is given for effects recording, one assistant director is given for the dialogue recording. So I work with the direction department to get things done, like, you know, so that they know sometimes they know more than the director at that point of time, because he or she is very busy, like, you know, so they know what is being planned in the shooting stage. Sometimes I've seen some assistant directors tell me, we actually imagine this scene to have this kind of a sound. It would be surprising to hear some assistant directors will have a sound design in mind, like, you know. So that helps me a lot with the planning of it. Then it comes the production and the budget, like, you know, sometimes, as you said, it's in the tail end of the process. They have depleted all the budget, like, you know, they will be having very minimum, because until the edit is over, no one has any idea of what the film is about. Once they see the edit, that means the film is over. They forgot about, or 3 months baki hai sound ke liye. Like, no, 2-3 months, no, we have only 1 month. So once the edit is over, I keep my time till the edit. I do whatever, like, you know, planning and everything till the edit. I know once the edit is over, they're going to come on my head. So I'll be ready, like, you know, keep everything, all coins placed, Foley, everything is ready. So once the edit is over, I'll just start the engine. Like, you know, then at least I can cope with the time and also do a little bit of creative part of it. Otherwise, it gets very difficult.
So you mean to say, as the edit is on, your Foley and everything has started already?
Yes.
Oh.
So what I'll ask them to do is I will ask them to set the tones of certain sounds, like, footsteps and everything. I will show them the film. This is the film. So these are the sounds we need. What are the props you need? Because it will take a week to collect all the props and bring it together, So with the rough cut, I'll plan everything. Like because the Foley artist also would need something from the production, then so those things needs to be arranged. So once a cut is ready, so it's just work, like how many ever shifts you, then you finish it. Just keep the tone and everything set ready, and so at least the idea wise, it's all set. And then it's all execution. Once the cut comes, then it's only execution. Then we have very little time after that to sit with the director and especially for films which are set for release and stuff like that. I mean, if there is no release date, then there is time. Then me and the director can sit and just linger on the zone for like how much of a time we want. But it very rarely happens in that kind of a production setup. When money is involved, then producers are calling every day, like, kya ho gaya? Edit to khatam ho gaya. Like, where is the film? Sound mein. Why so long in sound? That's a question we've been asked often. Like, why does it take so long?
See, music is a big part of all our commercial films, and music directors also have become larger than life.
Yeah.
Probably sometimes even bigger than the director himself. Like if you talk to Rahman, or that stature is huge. How accommodative are they for sound design?
So once a film is written, the first output is the songs. The songs are the first thing they do work for the film. So in that sense, the film is first conceived musically, So that itself says it a lot. I mean, so then the musicians have a world. They have created a world with the songs and everything, and they have structured. They have gone and recorded a lot of instruments and stuff like that. They've gone to abroad and did recorded an orchestra. They've spent so much money, and so these elements, this business element is there. But then when the whole film comes, it is a fight, because somewhere subconsciously there are some certain sound elements which needs to be added. It needs to come above the musical score. At those times, it's a little challenging to convince the composer. Okay, I've understood. It's been recorded. We spent a lot of money, but for the film, we need to discuss certain things and stuff like that. Some composers accommodate, some, especially composers from abroad, they very well accommodate because they understand the music as background. For them, background is background. It's only levels. They would say, okay, let's work with the levels. Here, it's not background; it's foreground. Background is foreground. So it's not even leveling. It's discussion whether to keep it or not keep it. So it's also the type of music, what type it's, whether it's an orchestra, because we are a melody-based musical structure. Like Indian films, a lot of melody in the themes and everything. A lot of edit is also done with a lot of montages, with a lot of there's a whole montage for 5 minutes of music is happening. So the whole color of the film is only musical, In that sense, it becomes very challenging to convince a composer because he's already very comfortable in that zone, dialogue and music and dialogue and music. Then I need the director's help then the director and the composer sit, because I alone cannot convince. Then it becomes an ego clash, who's this person who's coming and telling me what to do, whether to mute this, reduce it, cut it, Because once I got into a huge fight with the composer because I edited the music according to the scene, because the way it comes in, the way it goes in, we did a little bit of adjustment, but the composer got very angry. So then he was very angry with me for a long time, actually. But then I had to sit and convince him, no, it spoils the drama, it kills the silence, you can create more drama like this and stuff like that. But it is a challenge. Not some composers you don't even get to meet. Like big composers, there is no chance of meeting. They won't even come and sit with you. They will just send you the material, and they will only, whether it is good or bad, they'll only give you the feedback of it, So, and there won't be any time also. I will have probably, for commercial films, probably I'll have 2 days, 3 days in the mix. So in that time, how much would we sit? There is no scope for discussions. Like, it really depends on who the composer is, what type of music, and who the director is, who has the upper hand, whether the director has the upper hand or the composer has the upper hand in the film. In most of the South Indian films, the composer has the upper hand. Like, the composer is takes the final call in the mix. Then there is no space for anybody. Forget the director, Now, for example, I had an opportunity to work with the director of No Man's Land, Danis Stanovic. I did this film called Tigers with him. Like, I mixed the film with Pramod Thomas, one of our senior. It was the film had a very, very subtle piece of music. Okay, it was just a mild piano here and there, a sitar and a tabla happening here and there. Nothing major, nothing complicated. So once he walked into the mix room, even that one layer of piano was so loud to him. He was like, why it is so loud? So then I understood, it is the sensitivity, it's probably the cultural sensitivity of the filmmaker. We had to dip the piano so much that it's barely heard, but it's felt. He was very comfortable in a feeling level other than the hearing level, He wanted his music to just flow. He used to tell me that people shouldn't know when the music came and when the music left. It should be a subconscious engagement with the audience. You consciously, those peaks and dynamic progressions in the music will spoil the viewing of my film. So his sensitivity towards his medium was like that. The other end is the the loudness sensitivity. Why it is so low?
So, speaking of composing, the other big part of Indian film industry is the fights.
Yeah.
So our fights are in commercial films it's usually the over the top fights and very imaginative. So to put it mildly, it's very imaginative. So how does your sound design go there?
I normally stick to the visual drama of it, and I try to create. My plan is to create a sense of the action, how close to reality as possible. But it also depends on the choreography of the fight. If the choreography of the fight is not natural, then it doesn't make sense for me to approach a natural sound design for the fight. For example, a film like Kabali wouldn't have a natural sense of choreography. They won't design a fight scene for Rajinikanth in the most natural way. But I worked on another film where there is two farmers fighting and rolling on the ground and punching each other. Now that approach of choreography itself is very different. So for that, I had to go to the actual location and make two people roll and create that kind of sound texture for that fight. But here, for this commercial film, I had to rely on the pre-recorded thing and dramatic punches and hits and everything, because it's already larger than life of the fight. So then there is no point in approaching anything with life. It won't even look impactful. It will lose the purpose of the design of the stunt choreography actually. So I normally follow that design. I probably talk with the stunt masters, because they know, what kind of sound they would like to hear, So for me, my target is them. Is your fight effective? Did you imagine like this? Yeah. Okay, then it's correct.
But in Ruban, for example, the example you gave about two farmers rolling down.
Yeah.
Your frame, please.
Yeah.
Would you add, say, for example, two dogs barking off frame to enhance or give it another layer to it?
Yes, because in that, there is definitely a scope for that, because in that kind of a scene, the director also wouldn't want to indulge in music. So in that sense, it leaves a lot of scope for me to play with the objects which we don't see in the frame also. Like you said, dogs, or if it's happening in a marketplace, the chaos of the market, or or if happening in a bus stop, the chaos of the horns and everything. So it will definitely add to the drama of it. That is for sure. Yeah, that is one layer I definitely would explore on that. Because once the music comes, then there is no space. I think the reality breaks in there. Like, I can't walk into the reality anymore. But without the music, then when it's still real, then I have all these aspects of elements to explore. And it again depends on where the fight is happening. Then this is a point where I can, if I come in the script level, I can suggest the director to have the fight scene in this space, so that orally we can explore these possibilities. Yeah. So now this is the space where in script level I can indulge in, like, discussions like this. Then they can shoot and create the drama and stuff like that. Otherwise, after the shooting, then there is nothing to explore. Then there's nothing to explore. Like,
That's true.
So yeah.
So one more thing I wanted to know is you have worked with Paranjit for 3 films.
Yeah, 3 films.
So Paranjit's politics is very, very widely discussed in terms of his politics in cinema. Or any other. Paranjit came to my mind because his politics was recently discussed. It was discussed across India. So I wanted to know how much of these kind of politics, as in the politics of cinema, comes into your mind while designing a sound. Like, do you work with the politics of the director, or do you have your own politics?
No, I normally tend to work with the politics of the film and the director, because the idea is very strong. I mean, I wouldn't be able to contradict that politics also in the film, like, because in a way I also agree with that politics. So I resonate with that politics also in that sense. So I discuss with him, I try to talk with him and understand more of what he's wanting to say. And the other thing is, it's mostly a political drama, and a lot of information is conveyed through dialogues or lyrics in the song, So then that is also very challenging for me, because a lot of information is coming from the characters and everything. There is actually very little scope to explore the layers of sound of the space, because whatever I could do could be very subconscious, like, where I might not even make the audience feel it or realize it, because then I couldn't tamper with the politics of it also by adding whatever I can add, like, But wherever space is explored, like in Madras, the North Madras space is explored, and the culture of that space is explored. So then my sound design was my aiming to create that culture through sound, like, what is happening at what part of the day in that space, day, night, what is happening, collect everything. In Kabali, I had very little scope, because even though the space is different, the politics is the same, like, but my scope really varies from Madras, like a film like Madras and a film like Kabali, because in Kabali, it's not only politics, but it's also a superstar attached to it, like, So for me, it's actually very little scope, like, for me to explore. I had only scope to create the right sounds, not the most creative sounds of it, like, whether make it sound right. Like, so I can't work with much of a politics, but Kala, I had a lot of space to create the politics of the space of the Dharavi, like, the people and everything. Basically, a film like Kala, like, if you want to create a sense of Dharavi, I understood, because the filmmaker wanted to create a very lively Dharavi, like, not a very dark or like an underworld thing, like, it's a very lively, with a lot of life attached to it. I think I tried to capture that in the sound. People actually happily laughing, living, like, having fun times, like, so I captured all these moments in Dharavi. So that helped me to create that, like, that world actually.
For that, did you have to go to Dharavi and record sounds there?
Yeah. So I stayed there for at least a week to 10 days. First, I had a friend, like a guide sort of thing. She actually walked me the entire Dharavi. One day is not enough to walk also, like, to cover the entire lanes and by lanes and, like, narrow paths and everything. So many. I mean, I wouldn't say I've just covered only 20% of it in my recording. Like, I could have covered most of it, whatever time I had. But I managed to capture the life of it. Like, like I said, like, people sitting and talking, like playing games, laughing, like, these vendors, like, where life is celebrated in that sense in Dharavi. Not like not like we have the impression that like they are living in an ugly space. Like, no, they're happy people. Like you walk into their home, they laugh, they welcome you. Like they talk loudly. They're like very cheerful about where they live. Like So this is what we want to create it in the sound. So this is what I aim to capture also. So I had to be with the right people because they took me to all these gatherings, meetings with friends where kids play, like stuff like that. So that world was interesting in that sense.
Yeah. So thing is, compared to any other film industry, like across the world, in our industry, we have a very peculiar challenge that most of our sound reproduction in theaters are not probably state of the art. Other than the multiplexes, that too, of late, not all multiplexes have great sound. So how much of that actually comes into your mind while designing? ये तो सुनने वाला है नहीं. Like this is not going to be heard in the theater anyway. So does it trouble you?
Now, again, it depends on what type of film. I wouldn't bother for a film like Kabali or Kala because we are anyway going to mix it loud. So I wouldn't worry about that. But for a film like, say, there's a film I did called Pariyerum Perumal, which didn't have that kind of a star cast or that kind of a drama. And we wanted to use soft sounds. For example, the director wanted to hear a bird which he used to hear in his childhood home. Stuff like that, so how to make that across the audience. So that was challenging, because then I had to maintain a middle path, create a mix which is also soft, but it also not too loud for for the audience to lose the experience of it. So then, but the idea is if we create an overall film in a similar texture, then we can make the audience comfortable in that level. But it depends on what we are playing in the overall film. If our aim is to bang it in full loudness, then we have to go it full on. There is no bargain on that. But if you're creating a very subtle kind of a film, then we have to create the mix in such a way overall, so that the audience are comfortable in their own skin while viewing the film, So I think it is setting the tone for the film in an overall level. Once we set the tone, then technically we don't have to worry, because then even if they play it at a lower level, the audience will be able to understand, okay, it is a soft film.
Let me go back a little bit and talk about your big film, like Kabali, and big as in terms of production values.
Yeah.
When it comes to a film, Rajnikant's film, do you have any other external pressures, like a certain kind of expectation out of the sound design? Because it's Rajnikant, you have to have.
I mean, actually no. The pressure is only what loudness are we playing in those films, Yeah, and what kind of high impact sounds, and because the whole dialogue deliveries and the music, everything is actually very pretty loud up there, so there is no scope for subtler sounds to be played, most of the in most of the parts in the film. But I could, in fact, we even tried a lot of things in terms of Kabali and all. We tried a lot of things with the sound of his coat, like the texture of the coat when he walks, when he turns, like how sleek. We tried to make it as sleek as possible, and the texture of his shoes, we tried to give it a texture for that, I think those areas we kept working. Even his wishes, his turns. We even for Kabali, we had for his turns, we had added one layer of a sword turning, a wish of a sword, like a sharp, so that the turn is even more sharper than what his natural turn would be, So those elements, actually, it's fun if you go into dramatizing this character, to create a larger than life character, and convincing the audience and it's fun to make the audience experience that more, with more lot of finesse in that,
But how do you decide the line? This is too much, or maybe this is okay.
There is not too much. there is not too much, actually, because as I said, since it's larger than life, there is not too much. It will anyway fall in place, because I think because of the personality of a superstar in the frame and everything, the way he's socially conceived so far in our culture, I think it won't be enough. Like, it is more larger we create, it's more fun only, actually, in that sense.
Right.
Unless he does a film which is more realistic,
Yeah.
like, then probably we can explore those possibilities, because the stories are also written sometimes like that for him. Like, the scenes are also constructed like that. The stunt choreography is also constructed like that. Like,
So most important question about Kavali is, did you meet Rajnikant?
Yes, during the dubbing, like we met and we just had a small chat. But I think we had a chance to meet more in Kala, because I was more present in the dubbing of Kala. But I couldn't be there in the dubbing of Kabali because I was in Bombay for another project.
So why did you why did you shift to Chennai?
I kind of, I think it just happened like that. I think the projects were, I felt more comfortable here, like, keeping the base out of here. Like, I also wanted to do a lot of Tamil films in that sense, and but also keep like in Bombay and stuff like that. Because I never thought about it unless I did my first film in Tamil. That it's fun to work in our own language, because then, I mean, until then, language didn't bother me. But when I started working in Tamil films, it just became closer to me than the other languages. So I think that's the reason, maybe.
Right. So I wanted to shift to another topic now, because many of the films are thinking of direct OTT release and all those things. I've heard from a couple of sound designers here locally saying that the design is very different for OTTs. It's not like a surround sound or something like that. Of course, they do surround sound, but the panning has to be some kind of different angle or something like that. So, have you faced any such challenge, or what are your OTT?
Yeah. Because OTT, because the screen size is varied. Like, it's not a single screen size. Everybody watches in their own screen size, and of course, the panning and the moving of the sounds too much will create a problem, because sometimes if most of the time the speakers are not behind the screen. Like, in cinema the speakers are behind the screen, so every panning is part of the visual graph, like a visual frame. But here the sound itself is, if you move the sound away, it's somewhere in the room, like, it's nowhere part of the frame. So that is a challenge. So that's why they tend to avoid extreme pannings in OTT, like, pan too many sounds like that, too extreme lefts or extreme rights. But OTT actually is very interesting for me in terms of design, because there, I think there is a lot of scope for narrative, and it's very personal. Like, we are not addressing a mass audience at one point of time. Like, it's mostly addressing a single person, like, getting into a single person psyche, like, so in that sense, I think sound design plays a very important role. Like, you can get very close to the audience than theaters. Like, the experience can be even more better. Like, I've seen a lot of OTT films having great sound design than feature films, because of the closeness of it, because of the real, like, you feel the sound more closer to it, actually. I think in that sense, I think it's more interesting to work on an OTT film. And also the filmmakers have a lot of freedom in the content, like, which eventually gives a lot of space in the OTT platforms to explore in sound, like, because there is no songs, most of the films, like, they can release the film with any length. Length is not a fact, like, no problem. Cast is not a problem. Content is the master there, like, content is the king there. So when content is like, it comes number one, then it's other technical department have their own space to explore. I think that it's good in that sense. It's good for the aspect.
So, in an industry where the music and loudness takes predominance, do you see a growing trend in terms of sound design and growing respect to the sound designing?
I see a growing trend because with the technology, I think the tool has become so friendly to us now, I think, and we can reach the audience also even more effectively than what we used to do 10 years back or 20 years back. I think with the new formats like Dolby Atmos and stuff like that, like, we have a lot of quality enhancement to the technique now. In that sense, the recording quality is improved. The live recording quality has improved drastically what was there before, because the recorders have improved, and we have very good dialogue editors in the film. So all these things are giving the filmmakers scope to explore the oral part of it, but music is going to be there. I think whatever we are having now is going to be there for a while. I mean, but it doesn't mean that we are going on sound in the designing part of the sound on the lower scale. I wouldn't say that. I think we are still learning, we are still exploring. I think we are still figuring out. I think thanks to the Netflix and all these platforms where they do such quality films, I think I'm seeing a lot of filmmakers getting inspired by the films and the sound texture they produce. I think that is giving a lot of upliftment to the content here. People are also, I mean, in Tamil, people are slowly conceiving films without music, without songs. One by one, it's coming to that, and since it's OTT, it's been out, and it's out there for people to experience in that form itself. So I think with all this online thing, it's going to explode only more, I would say.
So great talking to you, Ruban. I think we'll catch up again probably after some time, or probably after some films more. So it was nice.
Yes. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk.
Thank you so much for agreeing for this. Okay,
thank you so much. Okay, bye.
Bye.